Hello everyone, today we're going to be building the room homepage landing page from Frontend Mentor. So you can head over into frontendmentor.io/challenges. You can search for this challenge and then we can begin. And so I'm going to begin by saying visit Challenge Hub. And then I can download the starter files, but I already have them downloaded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my downloads folder. And inside my downloads folder, I have a zip file called room homepage master. I can just right click and then I can say extract here, which is going to extract into this folder right here. And I'm going to right click on this and just say open with code. And then now what I'm going to do is, because we're going to be building this out in Tailing Css and React.js, I also have my command line open where I want to create a new React application. So I'm going to cd into my desktop and into a folder on my desktop called FM challenges. And then inside here, I'm going to run npx create react app, and I'm going to call this app room homepage yt. And then I'm going to let this finish running and then we can begin. And before actually I begin, I should mention that if you try to run this and it doesn't work, you should check whether you have Node.js installed by saying node -- version, which will give you the current version of Node.js that you're running. And you can as well run npx -- version, which will give you the version of npx that you're running, and npm -- version as well. If none of these three commands don't work, then you can head over to https://nodejs.org and download and install Node.js on your system. So let me go ahead and say npx create react app, and I'm going to call this room homepage -yt. And then once it finishes running, then we're going to continue. As we begin, then please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and ring the notification bell so that you're always going to be notified of when I upload a new video. Okay, so now that this has finished running, what I'm going to do is I want to open another instance of Visual Studio Code into this folder. So I'm going to say code into room homepage -yt. And then now I can close this up, and then I'm going to place this to the left, and I'm going to place my code editor to the right. And this part is the zip file that we extracted, and this is our React application. So what I'm going to do is I want to copy the style guide, this readme template. If my computer is going to wake up. Okay, there we go. So this one, and then we also need to copy the index HTML, the images, and the design. And then I'm just going to drag and drop them inside here. Drag and drop, and then just say copy folders. So replace and replace. And then inside this git ignore, I'm going to select everything, so copy. And then inside my React application git ignore, I'm going to go to the bottom of this and paste this in. And then now I can close this, and then I can place this to be full screen. And then let me change this line to line 35, and then this one to line 36, and then change this into line 29. So you can go ahead and save this, and then now we can go ahead into our source folder. We are going to delete the app.css, the app.test.js, the logo, report.vitals, and the setup tests. And then inside the index.js, we're going to remove this because we have deleted this file. And then we're going to remove this one as well. And then inside the index.css, we're going to remove this. And then we're going to be resetting the font family here. We can remove the margin from here. We're going to reset the font family once we get the font. And then inside app.js, we're going to remove these two because we have deleted them. And then we're going to return just a fragment inside here with an h1 that says room homepage. Save this, and then now let's go ahead into our style guide, and we're going to be getting a font called Spartan. We are getting the 500, 600, and 700 font weights. So just control and click, which is going to open up this link. And it says this page does not exist. Let's search for Spartan. Let me see this font. So this is the font that we want to use, but I think it has been removed from Google Fonts, or it has been renamed to this one. So I just want to confirm that the font matches. Yeah, it does match. You can see that it does match. So this is the font that we're going to use. So let's get League Spartan. and then let's go ahead and grab the 500, the 600, and the 700, and then let's just go ahead and use the import. So import this, copy this, and then let's paste it inside here. Open up index.css. On top of this, let's paste it on top, and then we can remove the font family here. Let's specify League Spartan with a fallback of sans serif. And then before we go ahead and spin up our dev server, I want to install Tailwind CSS. So open up your integrated terminal, and then you can navigate into Tailwind CSS docs. Tailwind. And then inside the framework guides, you can go into create React app, and then you can just copy these two links. So you can copy both of these, copy, and then paste them inside here. And then let this run, and then once they run, then we are going to go ahead and copy this part here, which we're going to paste into our Tailwind config file. There we go. So let this second one also run to create our Tailwind config file right here. Taking a while. Okay, there we go. So Tailwind config file, and then inside here, inside the content, we're going to paste this in, and then let's go ahead and also paste this into our index.css. So inside the index.css, let me just go below this, paste this in, and then now we can go ahead and say npm run start, which is going to start our server. So npm run start, and then as that spins up, look at the functionality for this. So we are building a header, and then we are building this section, which is a slider. So we should be able to click on these two arrow keys, which is going to like let me see where it is. So this is the first slide, and then the second slide when we click on this one, and then the third slide when we click on this one, and then we can like click on the previous one to go to the previous slides. And then on the bottom, these don't change, so this is going to be static, but our slider is going to be on the top. So we're going to have three components. The first one is going to be our header, which is going to be this one, which holds the logo and the navbar. The second one is going to be our slider, and then the third one is going to be this section on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and create our header.js. So inside here, inside our source folder, let's create a new folder called components. And then inside components, let's create header.js, header.js. And then I know that we are going to need our logo. So inside the images, I just want to go ahead and grab this logo, and what I'm going to do is, let's see, I'm going to say inside the source folder, let me create a new folder called images, and then inside here I just want to drag and drop this logo into the images folder. And actually, you know what, I'm doing something wrong. You know what I should have done is this. Let me take this back on top, let me delete this images folder, and then what I need to do is let me just remove the favicon from here. So that is our server starting up. So let me remove the favicon, let me drag and drop the favicon into the public folder, and then just drag and drop it. And then I'm going to delete this second favicon because we don't need it. And then now what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to copy this images folder. I'm going to copy it, and you're going to see why in a moment. And then inside the source folder, I'm going to paste it in. So paste in our images. And then now what we need to do is this, the mobile hero. So these hero images and these three hero images, we're going to delete them from here. So delete them. And then now what we're going to do is this. We're going to go back into the public folder. Into our images folder here. And then we're going to delete the rest of these images here, but only leave the hero images. So delete this so that we only remain with our hero images. And then now this images folder that is remaining here, we're going to drag and drop it into the public folder. Okay, so the reason why I'm doing that is we're going to be serving our images from the public folder because we want to create an array of objects for it, and you're going to see why. So once you have that, then let's go inside the index.html, and then let's change the title here into Frontend Mentor. Let's call this room homepage. And then we can also change the theme color here into F1, or white. You can have it as white or this very slight gray, it's okay. And then let's close this out. Let's close this as well. And then inside the header, let's go ahead and grab our logo. So inside the header.js, I'm just going to say RFC. And inside here, we're going to return a fragment, and then we're going to get the header element. And then the header element is going to be structured as follows. We're going to have a div, and then inside this div, we're going to have an image. The image is going to be the logo, which we're going to import. And then we're also going to have a navbar, but for now it's just going to be empty. And then we're going to have another div, and this div is going to be a button, and this button is going to be an image, and this image is going to be our hamburger icon for mobile images, for mobile screens, sorry. So let me call this menu, and then let's go ahead and import these two icons. So I'm going to say import logo from /images / logo.svg, and then let's also import our menu. So import menu from /images / icon -hamburger.svg should be the one, this one. And then let's go ahead and save this, and then let's import our header into our app.js. So right here now, instead of rendering Roam homepage, which we should see on the screen by the way here, then I want to render our header. So render the header component like so, and we should see our logo. And let's reload this. Let me see. Okay, so we should see our logo, but we don't see them because they are white in color. So we are going to see them once we add our background image. And because we're going to be building this mobile first, let me place this to the right, and then let me place this to the left. And you know what, let me close this, and then we can close this. And then now let's go ahead and build our showcase. So the first showcase is going to be this. Let me just call this showcase by the way, showcase.js. And then now what we want to do is I'm going to say RFC to generate the function component, and then we're going to return a fragment, and then this fragment is going to be as follows. I can just render an h1 for now that says showcase, and then inside app.js I can render the showcase here, and we should see showcase right there. So inside the showcase, because we have 3 slides, we know this is the 3rd slide, and then this is the 2nd one, and then this is the 1st one. What we want to do is we want to make an array of objects which is going to hold this data, and then we're just going to be mapping over it and then displaying it on the screen using use state. So what I'm going to do is right on top, we're going to import use state from React. This is a comma, so use state from React, and then I'm just going to initialize my state value, and I'm going to call it items. So const items is equal to use state, and we're going to be using some data which we're going to create. So right below this, let me create data. So I'm going to say const data is equal to an array of objects, and this is going to be structured as follows. So it's going to have an ID. I'm just going to give it an ID of 1 for the first slide, and then we're going to say this for the title of the first slide. So title, we can go inside our index.html file which we copied here, and then we are just going to do a bit of copying pasting. Let me place this full screen so it's easier. So this is the title for the first one. Copy this and paste it here, and then the description for the first one, you can call this something else if you want. I'm just going to call it description, so desk like so, and I'm just going to copy this, and then paste it inside here. Now you'll notice that for all 3 slides, they all have a button that says shop now. So instead of adding the button inside here, inside our array of objects, then I'm just going to add it in when we build out like our UI. So let's remove this space from here, and then remove this space as well, so that we don't have any errors. And then let's just copy this down 2 more times. So go Shift Alt and down, so 1 and 2, and then change this into 2, and then change this to 3, and then we can go ahead and change these titles. So change this title, the second one says this, copy, paste it here, and then the description says this, copy and paste it inside here. Remove this space to remove the error, this one as well. And then the third one says this, copy this, paste it here, and then the text as well, copy and paste, and then remove this space, remove this space, so that we're going to have this. Now we also need to have the mobile images and the desktop images, because look at this, inside the public folder we have the desktop hero, and then we also have the mobile hero images. So we are going to do this. For the first one, I'm going to have the mobile image like so. So mobile is going to be coming from /images, and /images, because we are accessing the images from the public folder, that's why we can do this. So they are being served statically. So /images, and this first image is called mobile image hero-1.jpg, and then just copy this down and then change this into desktop like so. And then let's copy this and then paste it here, change this into mobile 2, change this into desktop 2, and then copy this down, change this into mobile 3 and desktop 3, so that we are targeting the correct images. And now let's go ahead and let's map over our data that we have inside here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a section. So inside here, I'm going to say items.map, and then for every item that I get back, so the object that we are going to get back when you map over it, I'm calling it an item. And then we can also access the index of every single item. And then what we're going to do is we're going to return an article with the key of item.id. You can have the key to be the index as well, but because I gave it an ID, I'm just going to say item.id. And then inside here, we're going to have a div, and then this div is going to be our image. And because we have the mobile image and the desktop images, we are not going to be using this. We're going to be using the picture tag, which is going to help us to toggle between mobile or desktop images depending on the device width. So inside here, we're going to have a source, and then we're going to have a media for this. What is it? Media is equal to, let's say, min width, let's say, of 768 pixels. Close this, and then we want to see that the source set for this is going to be coming from the item.desktop, and then close this out. And then we're going to have a default image. The source for this image is going to say item.mobile, and then the alt attribute, in case the image fails to load, we're just going to say item.title. Why does alt keep on adding? Okay. And so what this will do is that it's going to check for this particular width, and when the device exceeds this width, then it's going to show the desktop image. Otherwise it's just going to show the mobile image. And then once we have this div here, we're going to create another div, and then this div is going to have an h1, which is going to say item.title, and then below this we're going to have a paragraph, which is going to say item.description.desk. And then below this paragraph, we're going to have a button, and then this button is going to say shop now. But remember that this button has an arrow, so it has this arrow that we need to add. So I'm going to add an image here. The source for this is going to be the arrow, which we're going to import. And then because the image is decorative, then we don't need to have the alt attribute. You can have it if you want. And then let's go ahead and import the arrow image. So import arrow from dot slash images /icon-arrow.svg. And then let's go ahead and save this, and let's see what we have on the screen. We should have our images. So we have our first image, our second image, and our third image. Now let's go ahead and style this out. So I can place this to the left, and then let's go inside this image here. Let's give this a class name of width-full, which will make it go to the end. And then let's go inside this h1, give this h1 a class name of text-3xl. Let me see how big that is. Okay, and then let's say that for large screens the text should be 5xl, make it bigger. And then let's go inside this div, give this div a class name of padding all round of 8 to push all the content inwards. And then let's say that for large screens, then the padding should be 12. We're going to see how that looks. We might have to readjust this. And then let's go inside the paragraph. So inside this paragraph, give this paragraph a class name of text slate-900 with an opacity of 75 to make it lighter. And then let's give it a margin on the top of 8 and margin bottom of 12 to push away from the button. That's too large, too large. Let's just say let me say margin on the Y of 6. Let me see how that looks. I think that's manageable. And then let's go back inside the h1. Let's also give the h1 a text of slate-900. so that it's not completely black. It's barely visible, but it's not completely black now. And then now what we're going to do is inside this button, we're going to give this button a class name of flex so that this image goes here. And then I'm going to say items-center. And then I'm going to say give this a gap of around 4 to push the image away. And then let's go inside. Actually, you know what? Still inside here, we need this image to be uppercase. So let's say uppercase to make the text uppercase. There we go. And then we also need to increase the letter spacing. So I can say tracking dash widest here. Let me see how large that is. And this isn't all that. Let me see. See, the letter spacing is a bit more on these ones, right? So let's do this. Instead of adding this inside here, let me add a style object. So style is equal to this, and then let's say letter spacing. Let's specify a letter spacing of about 0.5 rem. Yeah, I think that is much better, or 0.7. I think that is much better. So this is going to be our button. And then for the button, when we hover over it, we want the opacity to reduce to about 75 so that this happens, because that is the hover state for the button. If you check the hover state, let me see, look at this. So when you hover over it, then the button reduces its opacity. So let's go ahead and do this now. We can have, so this is how all these slides look, and then on bigger screens they look like this. So on bigger screens we're going to have to readjust this just a bit. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go back inside our section, and so inside our section we're going to do this. We're going to say that give this a class name of grid and grid columns -1. And then what we need to do is that we're going to say that for large screens that the grid columns should be 2. Let me see if that works. Nope, that is not the correct thing to do. The correct thing is to remove this from here and then paste it inside this article here. That should do it. There we go. So on large screens this is how it looks. And then by the way, the header is here. That's why we have this space on top. Okay, so let's go ahead now and let's add our buttons. So our buttons, our previous and next buttons. So let's go ahead into let me see, let me go outside of this div, and actually, you know what, let me go inside this div. And inside this div we're going to have a UL with 2 list items, and these list items are going to be buttons, and these buttons are going to have images. So the source for this first image is going to be, what is it? Let me just confirm. Here it's called icon angle left. So let me just call this left, and then let me call this right. And then let's import these 2 images. So on top, let me copy this downwards. So I'm going to say import left, and this is import right. This one is called icon angle left, and then the second one is called icon angle right. So let's go ahead. When I save this, we should see something on the screen, but it is okay. There we go. So they're both here. You can see them here. So we want to position this UL absolute within this image. So I'm going to say give this a class name of absolute, and then bring it to the bottom by 0, bring it to the right by 0. And this is going to mess up a bit. And let me just give it let me go where? Let me go inside these list items maybe. Oh, you know what? Let me go inside the buttons. So here and here, give this a class name of BG black, and we should see where they are. You can see that now they are here. Now the reason why they are here is because they are positioned absolute but within the body, but we want them to be positioned absolute within this div. So inside this div we're going to give this div a class name of relative, which is now going to position each of these buttons relative to like their parent div, which is the image, as you can see. So that we're going to have this. Now let's go ahead inside these images. So here and here, give this a class name of padding all around of around 8. How big is that? That's quite big. Let's say 6. And then what we're going to do is inside the UL, we're going to give this UL a class of flex to display them side by side. And then bottom, so it's not completely to the bottom. So let me say give it a negative bottom of around 2. Let me see how that is. Almost, let's say bottom 3. And that is much better. And then now what we need to do is we need to have the hover state on the button. So right here, so click here and then hold down the Alt key and then click here. So we're going to say hover, and we're going to say, let's say bg gray dash, how much is it? 700 maybe. Let me see. Almost, that is not really the correct color. Let me say bg neutral. How is this? Yeah, that is much better. That is much better. So bg neutral 700, and then let's also have a transition. So transition all the elements with a duration of 200, so that like it doesn't just pop in. You can see that now like it kind of like has a fade in and fade out. And then now let's do this. Let's increase the padding on the top and bottom of these two. And you know what, I don't even need to increase the padding because this is displayed as a grid. So what I can do is that for large screens, I can say place item center. I think that is the correct class, is it? Let's see. There we go. So that now it is completely centered. I mean perfectly centered, so to speak. And so now we have this. So the next thing that we need to do is let's position our header absolute so that we can actually see it. So inside the header, let's go inside here, give this a class name of absolute, which is now going to bring it here, and then let's give it a z-index of about 10 to put it on top of the cards. So right there, now we can see our images. So let's give it a padding all round of 8, and then let's say width dash full, so that is going to happen. And then inside here, let's also give it a class of flex and items dash start and justify dash start. Actually, is that correct? This is not how the mobile design is, but we're going to figure that out in a moment. For now, let's go ahead and let's just get the bottom part of this, and our bottom part is these 3 articles. So for these 3 articles, I'm just going to give I'm going to create another component, and I'm going to call this component section 2. So section2.js, and then inside here we know that we need this dark background and this light background, and the images are called about dark and about light. So oops, let me just say rfc, and then on top of this, let's say import, let's say about dark from /images / image dash about dash dark.jpg. Copy this downwards, change this into light, and then change this into light. And then inside here, let's return a fragment, and then we're going to return a section, and then this section is going to be articles. So the first article is going to be the image, which is the about dark, so about dark. And then the second article is going to be an h2 that says about our furniture, so about our furniture. And then it's going to have a paragraph. This paragraph says this. Let me go inside the index.html here. Let's copy this, so this one, and then let's paste it inside here. And then below this article, we're going to have another article, which is going to be an image. The source for this image is the about light, so about light. And so let's save this, and then let's see what we have on the screen. And of course we have nothing because I need to import it in app.js. So section 2, and remember to import it on the top. So save this, and then now we should see our images. So we have about dark, we have this text, and then we have this one. So let's go ahead and style it out. On mobile screens, they're stacked one on top of the other, but what I want to do is here I want to give this image a class name of width dash full, and then just copy this and then paste it here as well. And then what we're going to do is inside this section, we're going to give this section a class name of grid and grid dash columns dash 1. It's not going to have a gap. And then we're going to say that for large screens, then we're going to say grid columns dash 3. And then let's see, let me save this. Let's see what we have. So we have 1, 2, 3 on large screens, and then on less than large screens, they're going to stack one on top of the other. So the dark image, then the text, then the light image. So what you need to do is inside this h2, give this a class name of font dash semi-bold. Let's say text dash 2xl. And then for large screens, let's say text dash 3xl. Let's change this into uppercase. And then let's go inside this paragraph, give this a class name of text slate dash 900 with an opacity of dash 75. And then let's say margin on the top of 6. I think I had a margin of 6 on this paragraph. Let me check. It is a 6, yes. So let's save this and then let's see what we have. So we have this looking nice. And then now what we need to do is we're going to go inside this article, give this article a class name of padding all round of 8 to push everything inwards, like so. And then you know what, let me see how 12 looks like. And 12 does look nice, but I've just remembered that I had a padding all round of 12 on large screens. So let me specify this to be on large screens, and then on small screens I had a padding of 8, just like we did on top. And you can see that this is now how our design looks. And of course now we just need to handle our top part. And so let's go ahead and now do this. Let's go ahead and create our slider. And so our slider is going to be the following. So let's go back into the showcase and we are going to do this. So on top of this, I'm going to create a new state value, which is called slide index. And then we're going to say set slide index. This is going to equal to use state, and by default it's going to be 1. And then below this we're going to create our function to go to the next slide. So I'm going to call this function next slide. And then we're also going to create another function called previous slide. So function previous slide. You can use arrow functions as you saw, like I was about to write an arrow function, or you can just use the generic functions if you want to. And then once we have this, then once we add the logic, then inside the buttons, so inside this button, which is the left arrow, we want that when you click on it, then it triggers the previous slide function which we're going to create. And then inside this other button, we want that when you click on this, then it triggers the next slide function. So let's go ahead and now let's create these functions. So inside the next slide, we're going to check that if the slide index is not equal to the, into the data dot length. You can have this into items dot length. I think it's going to work the same way. And items dot length is basically this, because it's an array, then we can use the length method on it to get how many items are in the array. So we are saying that if the slide index is not equal to the items dot length, and the slide index we have initialized it to 1 inside here, then we want to go ahead and say this. We're going to say set the slide index into slide index plus 1, basically increment it by 1. And then I'm going to say else if the slide index is equal to the items dot length. So if they match, then I'm going to say set slide index into the first one. And that's basically our next slide function. Okay, and then let's go ahead and now let's create our previous slide function. And the previous slide is going to be the opposite of this. And so inside here, we're going to say that if the slide index is not equal to 1, then we're going to say set slide index into the index of the image minus 1, or the index of the slide minus 1. And then I'm going to say else if, so else if the slide index is equal to 1, then we're going to say set slide index into the items dot length. And items dot length means basically take it back to the last item in the array that you have. So this is going to be our next slide. And then now what we need to do is this. We need to perform a check inside here for whether the index matches. So the index that we have inside here, remember we got it. So we're going to check whether the index matches the slide index. And if they do match, then we're going to be doing something. So I'm going to have to cut this out. And then we are going to place in our curly brackets. And we're going to say if slide index is equal to the index. So if this evaluates to true, then what we want to do is we want our grid to show up. So we want to basically these classes to show up. And then if it evaluates to false, then we are going to say this. We're just going to say hide them with display hidden, or with display none, sorry. So let's go ahead and let's try it out. Let's save this and then let's open our application. And it says index is not defined. So which index is not defined? 4421. 4421. Oh, so sorry about that. This should say slide index. So slide index. There we go. Let's test it out now. And you can see that now we are only getting one slide, we don't get the others, right? And if I click on the next one here, okay, so that's a problem. Let me see F12. Let's see what we have. What did we do wrong? The console is not showing anything. Let me see. Let's see. So if slide index is equal to index plus 1, let's see, test it out. Okay, so next and next and next and next. Okay, let's try the previous. So previous, and there we go. So our slider is working as we expected. Fantastic. Now all you need to do is, because this is working on mobile screens as well, as you can see, what I need to do is I just need to change this up, because negative bottom of 3 is bringing this downwards just a bit. So let me go and let me try something inside here. Where is it? Let me bring this to minus bottom 2 to bring it upwards just a bit. And then on large screen, this is also how it's going to look. So that's looking much better, right? And then now what we need to do is just handle our navbar. So for our navbar, let's go ahead into the header, and then inside here we're going to have a UL with home list items, 4 of them, and each of these are going to be buttons. And buttons, because they are not links, they're not linking to anywhere. This first one says home, this one says about. What does it say? Home, shop, about, contact. Home, shop, about, and contact. And then what we need to do is we're going to have a state value to check whether the navbar is open or closed. So inside here, I'm going to say const is open and set is open. This is going to be equal to useState and import it from React. So import it. And by default, it's going to be false, because obviously we don't want our navbar to be open by default. And then once we have that, then I'm going to do this. Let's check the mobile design here. Here it is. So the mobile design, the logo is in the middle. So the logo is in the middle, and then this is to the left. So that means that inside here, I'm going to change this into item center and justify center. Save this. Let's see how it looks on mobile. So that we're going to have this on mobile, right? And then let me place this to the left. And so what we need to do is inside this div, we need to position this div absolute. So class name absolute, and then bring it to the left by 8, to the top by 8, because remember on the header we had a padding all around of 8. So just to keep it uniform, so that now it appears here. And then the reason why this moves downwards is because of these links, but we're going to handle it in a moment. So let's go ahead and do this. Let me go inside this button. So click on this button, hold down the Alt key, click on this one and this one and this one. That's how you add multiple cursors. Give this a class name of actually, how does this look when it's open? It's like this. So this is how it looks when it's open. So it has a white background, and then the text is black, and then we have our icon here. Okay. And you know, look at this. So when this is open, then the opacity here, like it has like a background, right? Like it's darkened just a bit. You can see, right? So let's also do that. Let's do that also. So let me place this back here, and then we're going to do this. Let me go inside the navbar. The navbar is going to have a class name of bgwhite, right? Let's say I'm going to position this absolute to the top by 0 and to the left by 0. And then we're going to say width dash full, which is going to take it to the end. And then inside this UL, we're going to give this a class name of flex and item center and justify center, which is going to align this in row form. And then I'm also going to say flex wrap, so that just in case they reach the end, then they're automatically going to go into the next line. And then let's give it a gap of about 4 to separate all of these out. There we go. And then let's go back inside this navbar. Let's give this navbar a padding on the Y of about 6. How does that look? Padding on the Y of 6 does look okay. It does look okay, right? And then now this is when the navbar is open. So let me also add a slight box shadow here. Should I? I think I should. So a very slight box shadow, I mean, it's barely visible. So let's say shadow large. to make it just a bit more visible. And then we want our icon to appear here. You see our icon is right here. You can see when I hover over it, it shows up, right? So what I'm going to do is inside here, I'm going to increase the z index of this to about 20, so that it's always going to be on the top. But the reason why we don't see it is because it's also white. But remember that we have a close icon. So we have a close icon right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to import the close icon. So copy this down, change this into close, and then change this into close. And then we're going to perform a check on this button, and we're going to do this. We're going to cut this out, and I'm going to say when is open is true. So when our state value is true, it is false by default, then we want our close icon to appear. So we're going to have a button, and we're going to have an image, and then this image is going to be the close icon. And then when it is false, then we want our menu icon to appear. So when I save this, you can see that it's going to format it very well. But if I change this now to true, then we should see a grayed out icon right there. Okay, so padding on the y of 6 is a bit small, because you can see that this is to the bottom just a bit, because it is to the bottom by 8. Remember, it is to the bottom by 8 because we have set it to have, like, what is top 8? Top 8 is about 32 pixels, so 32 pixels from the top. So let's increase the navbar here. So let's say padding y of 8 to push it downwards as well, so that these now are going to be on the same line. And now let's go ahead into this button. So here and here and here and here, and then I'm going to add a border on the bottom. So border bottom of 2, and then I'm going to say border neutral. Sorry, you know what? It should be border transparent first, and then when I hover over it, I want the border to be a neutral color. So neutral -900, and then let's say transition -all with a duration of about 500. Let's save this, and then now look at this. So that we're going to have that. Okay, 500 is a bit too much, so let's say 200. That is much better. And the reason I'm adding this is because on larger screens, so on larger screens, this is how the hover state looks like. It has a slight border on the bottom. So let's go ahead and now let's continue dealing with our navbar. So this is when our navbar is open. So now we want to trigger the close animation. So let's go ahead and let's do this. We want that when you click on this button, so on click, we're going to say passing our inline function, and we're going to say set is open to false because it is true here. So when is open is true, then you want this to be false, and then I can just copy this, paste it here, and then change this to true. And then by default, let's go ahead and change this back to false, so that is going to happen. But nothing changes, and I just noticed why. So nothing changes because what we need to do is we need this to disappear and then to appear when we click on it. So let me go into my index.css, let me access the navbar, and let me just style this out. So I'm going to say, what style did I have inside here? So I have positioned it absolute to the top, So I'm going to say position this absolute, and then I'm going to say position to the left by -10,000, so that it's completely out of the screen. And when I save this, then it should work, but it doesn't work because I need to remove this one, and I need to remove this one as well, and save this, so that now it disappears. Why don't you disappear? Why don't you disappear? It doesn't disappear. Let me give this a B. Let me remove the background from here, and then let me also remove the box shadow. And I know how I'm going to apply them. So we're going to do this. I'm going to say @apply a shadow large, and this is still wrong, by the way. I don't know why I'm even doing it. So shadow large, and then what other class did I remove? What other class did I remove? BG white. Okay, so remove this as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a custom class of open on the navbar, so that when it has a class of open, then I want the box shadow to be applied. And then I'm also going to say that when it has a class of open, then the BG of white should be applied. So let me see if that is going to work. So nothing should change here. But why doesn't this go to the left? Why doesn't it go to the left? Is it because of top 0? something's wrong. Okay, so let me say 10,000 viewport widths. Let me see if that will change. Okay, so 10,000 viewport widths. And then what you need to do here is that when the number has a class of open, then bring it back to the left by 0. And so we can test this out, and let me just add a slight transition here. So transition all the elements by 0.5 seconds with an ease in out cubic Bezier curve. And then inside the header, let's add a class of open here. Let's see what happens. And you can see that that happens. I can remove it and it slides out, and when I add it, it slides back in. So that is working as expected. Now what we need to do is this. We want to add this class dynamically, right? So we're going to place in our curly brackets and then our backticks, and then we are going to place our $sign and curly brackets again, and we're going to say that when isOpen is true, so when this is true, then we want the class of open to be applied. And then when it is false, then we want these other classes to be applied. So with full and And you know what? This shouldn't even be here. It should probably be here as well. So let me save this and then let's see something. Now we added the click event on this. So let's try it out. So click, and you can see that our navbar slides in, and then when we click on it, it slides out. So that's looking quite nice. Now let's do this. I removed the top of 0 somewhere. Let me see. I should probably set it to the top by 0 here. Let me see something. Okay, top 0. And then now what we need to do is we need to reset these tiles on larger screens. So we're going to add a media query here, and I can just add it here, and I can say that for large screens the shadow should be none, so remove the box shadow. And then for large screens, then I want the BG to be transparent, and I can say BG none as well. Yeah, BG none. You know what, BG transparent. And then now what we're going to do is the following. We're going to add a media query, and I'm going to say that for a min width of 1024 pixels, 1024b, which is large screens when you're using Tailing Css, then we're going to access the navbar, and we're going to position the navbar as relative. So basically resetting these tiles, we're going to bring it to the top by 0, and then bring it to the left by 0, and then we're going to say the transition can remain. And then we're also going to access the navbar and the .open class, and then just to be safe, let me see, BG transparent. So this is already added here, so we don't need to add it here. Okay, so we can save this, and then you know what we need to say this. Let's try to increase this first of all. Let's see how it looks. Increase this. So you see when you increase this, then like the navbar appears here. So we also need to like reset a few things, right? So let's go back into our header, and then inside our header, let's go back to the bottom div, and we're going to say that for large screens, then display this as none because I don't want it to appear. So that makes it disappear. And then we're going to say this as well. We're going to go back into the header, and then we're going to say that for large screens, then we want the items to go back to the start. And then for large screens, we're going to say justify start as well, which is going to bring this to the left. But it doesn't bring it to the left. Why doesn't it bring it to the left? Let me check. It has a padding Y of 8 here. So I'm going to say that for large screens, the padding Y should be 0. And then for large screens, the width should be auto, which is going to reset it and bring it here. There we go. And then now I've just realized that probably here it's going to be an issue. Let me see. There's an issue somewhere because this is not centered correctly. It's not centered. Oh, I mean, I had item start here. So let me say item center. Let me see if that fixes it. There we go. Okay, there we go. And then now what we need to do is let's just tell this out to be better looking. So we're going to go back into our navbar, so into our buttons. So just select this text and say Control D, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is going to select and place multiple cursors. And then we're going to say that for large screens, then we want the text to be white. And then for large screens, then we want the border on the bottom to be white as well. And then let's save this. Let's see what happens. So this happens. You can see that happens. And that is not actually the correct way to do it. We want that for large screens, when we hover over it, then the border should be white. So let's see, and there we go. Would you look at that? And then now what we need to do is just go back into the navbar here, and then we are going to say the following. Let me see. You know what, I can even go on the image here, and I can say that give this a class name, and say that for large screens I want the margin on the right to be 8 to push away from this. There we go. So that is looking quite nice, but I've just realized something, and what I've realized is we did not add the transparent background here. So let me see if I can add it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this entire navbar. So this entire navbar, I'm going to cut it out, and I'm going to place it inside a div like so. And then inside this div, we're going to give this div a class name, and this class name is going to be dynamic once again. So placing your backticks and then $sign and your curly brackets, and I'm going to say that when isOpen is true, then we want the bg to be black, and then we're going to say bg-opacity-75, and then let's see, when it is false, then we want the bg to be transparent. Let me see if that will work. Let me see if it will work. I mean, of course nothing happens, because then we need to position this absolute. So right around here, let's position this absolute, and bring it to the top by 0, and then to the left by 0, and then to the right by 0, and then to the bottom by 0, so that it takes up the entire screen. Let's see, nothing happens. Okay, did you see that? So it's right there. So let's reload this, and then let's figure out why it's not covering up the entire screen. Probably because I should have each screen here, and there we go. Would you look at that? So that now our black background appears, but remember, it only covers 100% of the screen, 100 viewport height, so that when you scroll down, you're not going to see the number. And we're going to have that. Would you look at that? That is looking quite nice. I don't like the delay here. I do not like the delay. The delay is because this is so much outside. So let's say 1000 viewport widths. Let's say 100 viewport widths. The reason why it kind of goes to the top left is because like it has a top of 0 here, and you can try to mess with this to get it looking like however you want, really, but that is how it's going to look. So let's scale this up to make sure that nothing breaks. So this does break here, and what we need to do is we need to go back into our header, and then we're going to say that for let's say this, we're going to specify specifically that for large screens this should be transparent. And you know what, I should specify it inside here. So let me cut this out from this and specify it inside here, that for large screens then this should be transparent. And then let's say, what else do we need to reset? I think that should be it actually. Is it or not? It doesn't fix it. Let me see. So right around here, so probably I should also specify it here. Nothing changes, so it needs me to reload it before it changes. Why? Because I should say that for large screens, then okay, you know what, let me specify it inside here. For large screens, the height should be auto, and then let's say for large screens, let's position this as relative. Let me see. Okay, so that we're going to have this. So we are going to have this. So this is when it is open. When it is closed, then it scales up properly. And then when it is open, because we need to reset a few styles inside here, then we also need to go ahead and say for last, this should be BG transparent, not transparent. That disappears. It doesn't disappear. Oh, this should be BG transparent. How did I miss that? And there we go. So that's looking much better. Fantastic. And you can see that now our slider is working as well. You can try to add, the reason why like there's no transition on this is because we have this to display none. Where is it? On the showcase, we have this to display none because of the class of hidden. So probably what you can do is something like, you can do something like position it absolute and then add a transition on it and that will make it like slide in or something. But I don't want to do that because I hate absolute positioning, as you have seen in my short videos. So let's go ahead and submit this. Let me go ahead and create a GitHub repository. Let me go into Netlify to log in, and then we can submit this. Make sure that there are no errors in the console. Okay, close this, and then we can close all of this down. And then inside GitHub, let's create a new repository called room homepage. So room homepage YT, and then let's go ahead and create repository, and then copy this. And so what we're going to do is say git add all, adding, and say git commit -m, let's say initial commit, and then let's say dash project complete, and then let's say git remote add origin, paste in this link, and then let's say git push -u origin main, which is going to push it to the main branch. And then let's try and reload this. It should have committed, not yet. There we go. So we can reload this, and this is our repository. So let's go ahead and deploy this repository. So log in here, let's add a new site, import existing project from GitHub, and it is called room homepage YT. So room homepage YT, and then let's go ahead and deploy this. So loading, let's say deploy site, and then let's change the site name. Let's say TsbSankara, let's say room homepage, save that, and then wait for this to finish deploying, and then we can check it out. But we can go ahead and just submit our solution. So inside frontend method, let's say submit solution, let's say this is the repository URL, and then the live site URL is going to be this one. Where did I put it? Okay, I have to wait for it to finish. Okay, so once it finishes deploying, we can check this out. So this is the link, and we should have our application right there with our slider working correctly. So copy this link, and then let's paste it in our live site URL, and then let's say mobile first. Let's call this room homepage in React JS and Tailwind CSS. Okay, and then we can just say submit solution, and then let's wait for a moment. And you know what I've just realized, because I've just noticed it from here, the Favicon is not working. The Favicon is not working because I deleted it. So Favicon, this should say Favicon -32 times 32.png, and then we're also going to change it here. So copy this, change it here as well, and save it, and then we can just say git add all, git commit, and we can just say update Favicon, and say git push. And what that will do is that it is going to trigger a redeploy on Netlify, and then it's going to just update the Favicon, or rather update your website with the changes that you've made. In this case, it's just to update the Favicon. So let's check our solution. Our solution is this one, and then we have the design here. So this is the solution. So this is our solution, and then this is the design. So we could have made it a bit bigger and added more space. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, on what? Let me check. Oh, I've just realized on small screens the image, the arrows are here on the image, but on large screens then they are on this card. Okay, I did not catch that. I've just realized it. I've just noticed it here. So anyway, you know, there are small changes that you can make if you want to, but this is looking quite nice, if I do say so myself. We just need to make the images a bit bigger. So that is going to be the end of the video, and if you enjoyed it, then please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye. Our Favicon has updated.